Some people would relate, the Crips were the biggest destruction of the black community in the 70s. They, through this things that they did and the functions that they ravaged, they stopped a lot of black social activities. It came to the demise of, we used to have record hops and a lot of social events that children went to. Through that gang, it caused a lot of separation, and people start segregating themselves in neighborhoods. You had no longer Christmas parades, no record hops, and everybody started becoming segregated, and then it became the Bloods and the Crips. Then it later on became Pyrus out of Compton, and everybody started this internal war against each other. And for 20 years, we had no activities, and people were coming and, eating off of each other. And it came to a point where, in the late 70s, dudes would start having money and start doing different things and start getting a different approach. And by the Crips being the first gang of destruction, because we already had gangs. They had the businessmen, they had the Slawsons, they had the Outlaw 20s, they had the Gladiators. Those are gangs out of the 50s, and those are black gangs. We had the Farmers. Our neighborhood was Treetops from 1959. Then they had the Swamps. They had Boot Hill. They had Front Hood. Those were all intermingling sets. But it took on it was in a different time. So in the 70s, when the Crips came, it became a vicious time for youngsters. But you had a lot of misunderstandings on what the world was like. We all had parents. Tookie, his father, used to take pictures at all the clubs. Tookie had a mother and a father. He didn't grow up homeless, He didn't grow up in projects and stuff. So I grew up with a mother and a father. I had my own house. I had my own room. I never went to the refrigerator and there was no food there. I did what I did out of anger for something that was way past what I knew about in white America. Our parents came from the South to get away from prejudice. And they came to the West Coast thinking that there was going to be better. And when they came here, it wasn't prejudice, it was racism. Mm. And they bet they had to bite with another monster. But in the reflection of our parents, besides their parents gave them the understanding what prejudice was and what you had to do with white America. Our parents held it in and told us everything was all right, right? And it's like pissing on somebody and telling them it's rain, because it ain't all right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You go along, be nice, the police is your friend, and we found out that's not true.
Yeah.
So we grew up in this, and our parents are telling in their little section, and then we had a wave of kids like, man, we're the first, they say the baby boomers, we're the first ones. It ain't no Santa Claus. It ain't no Easter Bunny. Rabbits don't lay eggs, So when you start getting these realities, it's like your parents done lied to you. So you take to the streets and it becomes social. And we start listening to each other. And in conglomerate of that, out of all the people can go and look from afar and say how destructive gangbanging was, and which it was. And it took a lot of lives. But it's been gangs everywhere. The mafia was a gang, the Mexican mafia, they all had gangs. The Jews had gangs that became organizations, Before the Democrats and the Republicans, they was a mob. And they called it the Boston Tea Party. They said, fuck England, huh?
Yeah.
So they all came from something. So in these 50, 55, 60 years, these blacks are growing. So when you tell me about how corrupt, I've never even met you from 60s. But I know this dude, he went and bought I believe 100 black kids took them down and bought suits for them and bought shoes for them. These kids had never had hard shoes before in their life. Everybody wearing sneakers. And he took them to dinner. And when he took them to dinner, they didn't know the fork spoon from the salad fork from the real fork, or what a soup spoon was. But he gave them an introduction. He gave them something that they could see that he didn't have a chance to see when he was growing up, right?
Yeah.
So that exposure. Michael Conception has a Michael Conception Foundation, right? When you talk about these guys, the Roland Curtis, the 30 Crips, they went through during the drug era. They started buying all the houses in their neighborhoods, right? And they bought the houses in their neighborhoods, and they started cutting the old people's grass and taking out the trash. And you know what that did? Now the old people started embracing them and didn't tell the police on them, right? Changed the community, and the feds stepped in and gave them the RICO Act.
Damn.
Got rid of that. So these are things that you don't hear about. Snoop started a Snoop League. He started kids going back to the park, hadn't been to the park in 15 years. Cube, Game them, they started the Drew League. Black kids in Compton and Watts could go to Drew High School and see celebrities play basketball for free. So when you see these little changes, but it just takes, a man told me one time in prison, a big shot is a little shot that keeps on shooting. So these little baby steps, and people criticize, well, you know, this happened and that happened. Where were you? You got your platform on the game, you know? Now you got a platform. You wouldn't be anything without the structure of California, which is bad or which is good. And for you to say something alien against somebody that made you,